So welcome to my series, Unveiling the Secrets of Executive Presence. As a certified image professional and in my business style for life, I have the good fortune to work with some of Australia's and globally most influential women who are committed to making a difference in the world and are also not afraid to showcase their strength and courage with a powerful visual brand. These women appreciate an authentic image makes them even more credible, confident, and impressive than they sometimes appear on paper. But as an ambitious woman, the journey to the C-suite can often be filled with insecurity, fear, judgment, and second-guessing all around whether your executive presence and gravitas is going to be enough. Executive presence is one of the most important skills for success in business, but it's also the least understood, which is why I decided to start this series. Unveiling the Secrets of Executive Presence provides insights into how to develop and use executive presence as a powerful tool for career advancement through interviews with the most accomplished senior executive women in Australia and overseas. These women are highly respected leaders in their fields who concur that executive presence is a skill that should be learned and mastered to make a very real difference, and they share how they use it to achieve success both personally and professionally, and what executive presence has meant for them. Today I have the pleasure of talking to Heather Coombs, all the way from Washington, DC today. Heather Coombs, an accomplished leader in the ed tech sector, served as CEO of Straighterline, where her visionary leadership transformed the company into a premier provider of online courses. Under her guidance, Straighterline pioneered innovative partnerships and streamlined operations, resulting in significant growth and enhanced student success. With a proven track record in scaling high-growth companies, Heather's strategic acumen and dedication to innovation continue to make a positive impact in the tech industry and beyond. Recognized as a power woman of DC Tech and a champion for women in leadership, Heather's influence extends to empowering girls in STEM fields and supporting women's leadership to go to and stay in the C-suite. This is going to be a fabulous conversation. Thank you, Heather, so much for joining me on this series today.
Well, thank you for having me, Julie. It's such an honor to be asked.
So let's get into it. Can you tell us a time when you first realized the importance of executive presence in your career?
Absolutely. Early in my career, I joined a company called the Corporate Executive Board, or CEB. And it primarily sold it did corporate consulting and membership-based best practices research to the Fortune 500. And I was in the practice that sold our products to the general counsel of those companies. So it was walking in as a mid-20s something to a general counsel's office to present the product and the research from the product at a time. So you can imagine the audience was at that point primarily white men in their mid-60s. And so it was extremely important to find that presence that allowed me access to that room and to be taken seriously in that moment.
That would have been quite daunting as a young woman coming into the corporate field. How did you feel?
At times intimidated. And certainly I've recognized the pressure of the situation early on. As I gained practice, I think I felt empowered. I used to embrace this saying to embrace the power of low expectations, because I imagined that these gentlemen would see someone walking into their office and they would expect that I would not be able to impress them with what I had to say or to gain their attention. And so let them set the bar very low and then ensure, to exceed it, which allowed for this moment that you kind of see the opportunity in the room shift.
That's a really interesting strategy. It's like a reverse psychology almost, isn't it? Where you go in. Yes, very interesting. So you obviously surprised them and surpassed all expectations and went on to be very successful in that particular area. So, what specific strategies do you use to amplify your own executive presence then and even now?
Um, I think there are ways with both your spoken demeanor and your physical presence. And one I think is true today. It was true then. And yet there's an entire generation I'm working with it that perhaps is struggling to believe it. But I think to be professionally dressed, to come into the moment, dressed like you are to be taken seriously, and that you are in the mode and mentality of the expectations of the audience. So I'm not a believer in today's like overly casual environment, where it's hard to tell the difference between who's in bed, who's hanging out on their couch, and who's at work. I like to make sure that when you look the part when you're at work. And then I think there's a real truth to a calm professional demeanor. And well, then I think when you get the chance to present, you need to ensure that you know your stuff and that you're presenting from a data driven background, that you can back up what you have to say, and that you're ensuring that you are spot on and can impress the audience that's listening. And they're listening because you've already made that first impression coming into the room.
Yes, first impressions are very important, and I think that's where a lot of people let themselves down, in that there's not a lot of thought process that goes into, well, how should I be presenting myself to this particular audience? How, you talked about expectations in previous discussion, and so you have to also think about, well, what would their expectations be of me in my capacity now, and how should I be dressing for this particular meeting or presentation or whatever it might be. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Did you, I'm just curious, did you get any guidance of that when you were, a young woman starting out in your career? What help did you get to be able to, understand how to put yourself together in a very, very professional way?
I did, and I'm thankful for this moment. At the time, there were times where I thought that it was extreme. We had a very strict dress code in my early days in that professional environment of how we could dress, what we had to wear. And there was a woman in charge of our department, and she was very, very direct in her feedback and in her requirements of how we dressed. But I feel like that teaching, her stand, setting a really high standard and then holding it, taught me to respect the power of that standard and the impression it made on behalf of both our individual selves and the brand.
Because there is a difference, isn't there, to, dressing a certain way. If you dress more casually, you tend not to feel so empowered to walk into a room and make a fabulous presentation, I think anyway, as if you were, dressed very professionally to suit the moment. I think it does really impact the way we think, how we behave, and everything that flows through as a result.
I absolutely agree. And I've seen some things on social media where there are young women complaining that they did not get a job, that they showed up to an interview, whether it's on Zoom or in real life, with not being professionally dressed, perhaps with wet hair and no makeup. And it goes viral about this question of, well, is it about their looks? And well, I certainly want to be sensitive to all of the questions around that it isn't that your looks, it's that what you do to present yourself for the moment that you're in. And I think that you can look lots and lots of ways, but always put together, always like you collected yourself in the moment and prepared for that moment. But if you duck in, looking like you didn't have time to dry off after the shower, it doesn't look like that meeting was the most important thing of your day.
No, there's lack of preparation. And I think the word respect, you know, you've mentioned a couple of times, has a lot to do with this as well. It's your own self-respect. You know, would I allow myself to go looking like this? And also, well, what would the other people think if I showed up looking like this? I mean, there's times I won't walk out the front door unless I've, you know, dressed and presented a certain way. So yes, it goes a long way. So talk more to me about, you know, you mentioned a calm demeanor in terms of your strategy for executive presence.
Um, I think that especially as a woman in this space, that it is easy to get rattled or flustered, um, or perhaps giddy in the moment, but to have a variety of reactions that can make you look either nervous or unprepared, or they present younger or less professional than in the moment that you'd like them to be. And I think having a very calm, collected, prepared, confident approach to the moment really sets the stage for leveling the playing field of the room that you're in. And so you walking into a room and taking a seat right at the middle of the table, ensuring that you speak up when you introduce yourself, being at times the first to speak or the first one to introduce yourself, to finding those places where you really capture the opportunity rather than shrinking from it, and yet being sort of calm in that moment, both not too shy or nervous looking and not so eager or um, so rattled that shows either.
Mm. You mentioned also having, you know, data-driven information, which of course is the credibility, isn't it, behind everything. So if you're confident in the data that you're actually going to be presenting, then that should be a given. That should just be able to roll off the tongue, and you should be able to talk confidently about that. But it's, to me, it's also about the packaging, how you put yourself in front of those people. If you don't have to second guess yourself or be concerned or worried about how you've dressed yourself, how you've presented yourself, and you've got really, you know, clean, concise data that you can present and you know it inside and out, then that to me is just a perfect opportunity for success for any woman. And she shouldn't feel rattled, because she should be calm, because she's got nothing to question herself about, has she?
That's right. It's really about building your confidence before you walk into the room and then ensuring that you show it when you get there.
Absolutely. So in your opinion, do you feel that there are some misconceptions about this term executive presence at all?
I do. I think that there are times that it can feel like it means serious, or maybe even stoic. And I'm not sure I agree with that. I still think you can have a great deal of personality or creativity or individualism and have executive presence. I was at a presentation one day where a woman was on stage and she was talking about the experience that she had had where a boss recommended she not wear pink. And after a short time of trying not to wear pink, she decided she loved the color and she was going to wear it. And I thought that's a perfect example of where the color pink doesn't take from executive presence. She can be herself. She can certainly be creative and enthusiastic and friendly and smile and have executive presence. And so what I think that misconception could be is that you have to be dull or a wallflower or so uniform that you're blending into the background. And I don't think that's it at all.
No, it's not. Absolutely. Because there's so many people out there that do have this gravitas about them. They have a presence about them which is captivating, it's engaging, it certainly draws people to them. They tend to get people's attention. And look, by looking at your resume and biography and some of the amazing positions that you've held on certain boards and in memberships, you know, I'd say, and you are such an advocate for advancing women in leadership, that you would have a big following for yourself too, Heather.
I hope that I'm making an impact on another generation of women leaders. I really believe in the adage of paving the path forward as much as possible. I have 5 teenage daughters, so on their behalf, I hope I'm doing that, but also all of the amazing women I've had the opportunity to work with or mentor, or work for and across my my career, that really trying to help it become more equal and have the access and opportunity available for more women. I think is an important part of how all of those of us who are making it through can do it, to turn and offer a hand to the next person coming along behind us.
Yeah, well, that's a wonderful thing to be able to do. So let's just talk about the pandemic for a moment, because that certainly changed a lot of things for many women globally, in terms of what their aspirations may have been prior to the pandemic, how that shifted through the pandemic, and now what they're doing with their lives post-pandemic. And I know from, talking about executive presence and appearance and confidence in the workplace, there were a lot of things that we saw transition, particularly with dress and appearance and how they presented themselves. So, what's been the biggest shift that you experienced in how women presented themselves then versus now? And I'd really love your perspective on that from where you sit.
I feel like I'm starting to see it revert just a little bit back to a more formal sense. And I hope we keep going in that direction, because I think what I would say there is that the thing I saw too many women do that I wish they didn't was become a bit too casual, too familiar. There were women, for example, during the pandemic that were struggling at home with the multi-part jobs. And that was all of us trying to do all of the things while we were working at home. But they embraced it to such a sense that you would have sort of someone on camera with a wild scene behind them and a 2-year-old sitting on their lap. And I thought that's become too familiar, too easy, to not take seriously the moment that you want to make a professional impression, to make sure that your background is appropriate, that your attire is appropriate, and that what happens on camera, not that we all didn't have some kind of funny moments where a pet barked at a mailman, or somebody rang the doorbell, but those that became comfortable in the chaotic environment or the casual environment, I thought didn't do themselves a favor with setting the impression I think they wanted to have long term.
Mm. Oh, look, I agree. And we certainly saw it here in Australia too. A lot of, and, some very influential women I would see online, no makeup, hair wasn't, like just not presented well at all. And they found it was acceptable because we were in a very strange, unpredictable situation, and everyone was just coping the best way they could. And that's fine. We understand that. But I think I tend to hold your view that you can at least do something to be able to take you out of one situation where you're dealing with children's homework or whatever it might be, to then having a meeting with your subordinates or your peers or whatever it might be, even if it's just changing a jacket or doing something just to take you from that situation to this situation. I know we ran a lot of seminars over here, myself and a colleague, for women on how to do it, because not a lot of women even had the experience of presenting on Zoom or holding meetings on Zoom. That just really launched that whole virtual space into reality for a lot of people, and they were totally caught out. And yes, the dress code did relax considerably.
I believe so too. I think that not only did they not have the experience, but then this familiarity bred a certain level of reduction in their, I think, standards and expectations. I had a few women over time start to show up to on-camera meetings with the CEO on the meeting in their sports attire, as if they had been working out during the day, which I thought was a great benefit of people who worked at home if you could sneak in a workout. But I found almost insulted by someone showing back up sweaty, their hair in a ponytail, in their, sports tank top, and jumping on the camera almost as if we had interrupted their workout. and and I thought, I'm not sure that at work I want to see you in your workout gear, and I certainly don't think I want that. You didn't mean to give me the impression that I had interrupted your day. um and that was true across some men too. We had a young man come in to us meeting sweaty who claimed to have been mowing his yard in sort of the mid-morning time frame. And I thought, wow, people really have let down their guard to a point that this is not making the impression I think they hope to be making.
I think there was a lot of complacency out there with people. And yes, they did relax into, well, I've got all my work done now. So what, I'm going to go out and do something else. I'm going to go and practice my golf, or I'm going to go and, do something else. So as long as they were meeting their KPIs, at the end of the week, they thought it was okay for them to be able to do that. But yes, I think we're still struggling with that in some respects over here, going back to a sort of a hybrid type situation. So a lot of people still work from home, but they might go into the office maybe 2 days a week or something like that. I'm not sure where you're at in the States with that situation, but there's still a little bit of that, I think, going on.
Well, I think that is also true in the States. And one of the things that I keep being surprised by as I see the research, that not going in person is holding those individuals back. That the people who are going in person are building relationships, they're more likely to be promoted, they're more likely to be succeeding, get raises, that kind of thing. And so as women in particular, to choose not to take that opportunity as much as they can, I'm disappointed for those women. That this is a moment to capture your power and your presence. Go in person and show your executive presence, show your gravitas, build those relationships, and really move forward in your career, rather than that comfort or complacency by not taking those opportunities and then being frustrated that they're not coming your way.
That's very interesting perspective. And, with the fact that you are involved in so many different areas when it comes to women in leadership, are you seeing examples of women who were showing enormous potential, who have just fallen by the wayside because they've fallen into this, space of doesn't matter, or I don't care, or becoming complacent? That's disappointing, isn't it? Because we are all trying to get more women in the boardrooms and more women into CEO roles worldwide.
It is, for me, so disappointing. And I think that one of the reasons is that women are caught in somewhat of a conundrum of the childcare work, work in an office, a conflict where there now is an increasing pressure to be available to children who are still in the home at all times, and to have this career, rather than certainly for me in my early career, I had childcare, consistent childcare, whether that was in the home or outside the home. That now I think is a group of women, a part of this segment of professional women who are feeling like they are supposed to also be full-time at-home parents, that they're supposed to be, in the 2:30 p.m. pickup line. And that makes it very hard to also be in the office in a meeting dressed appropriately at 2:30. And so there's this world where women are in some ways trying to be all things again, in a way that while it may have been emotionally difficult to have missed some of those things before, at least there was clarity of the expectation. And now I think they're living both.
It's very hard. I mean, it's always been challenging for women trying to hold down a job and look after the children and look after the home. Always been challenging. And I don't know what the long-term answer is to that. Yes, I was a single mother, so I was trying to manage everything myself. And yeah, I understand. It's really hard. You've just got to make it work. As best
It is
possible.
very hard. And I think it's just gets even harder with like the social expectations on both sides. Everyone in the office wants her to not be a mother, and everyone who knows her as a mother wants her to not have the responsibilities of a high-powered career. And it's hard to be both.
And then you have the children's perspective too. And I think in a lot of cases, the children want to see their mum, be successful and have all of that. But they also want their mum as well. So it's really, really challenging. So in your career, how have you seen this whole concept of executive presence evolve? Because the term gets thrown around a lot, and I think there's a lot of different understandings as to what it means. But for me, I think you and I are very much on the same page in terms of, well, what does that look like? But how have you seen it evolve yourself?
I think one, if we think about it from the perspective of women in leadership, I think I first have seen it where women have clearly embodied more and more executive presence over the course of my career. I think early in my career, women shied away from the opportunity to really show their executive presence in many cases.
Mm.
And I'm thrilled to see more women step into this confident, bold position of equals when they're in the room. So over my career, there are many rooms that had no women in them otherwise, for board meetings or executive meetings. And now as that's become more frequent, not always perfect, but more frequent, it is women are right there at the table, speaking up, speaking as loudly, conveying their ideas with confidence. So I think women have come to the forefront more.
Mm.
And then as far as those women, as I've seen them, I think they have become more, what's the right word? Enthusiastic or
Ambitious.
authentic, I think,
Yeah.
in the moment of, you know, I remember when Hillary Clinton was running for the campaign and everyone talked about how she was only able to wear pantsuits.
Yes.
She needed to look like a man in order to be in a room with men and have that kind of presence. And today, I don't feel like that's the case at all. I think I can wear a bright red dress to a meeting and still have executive presence. I think there's a level of authenticity and embracing gender that has also become okay across time for women to have at the same time they have executive presence or confidence, or gravitas in the room.
I think we have so much opportunity now as women to be able to dress authentically and create a personal brand for ourselves, and for that to be recognizable across all platforms. And I think there's the opportunity for women coming through to be able to look at a woman who is influential, who has fabulous executive presence, who's being recognized for her talent and her successes, to be able to say, I want to be like that. And so raise the bar for themselves to strive to be that. And I think that's where we've maybe lacked in the past, is that there's been very, I wouldn't say very few women, but you have to search really hard to find those standout women. And being in Australia, we are a much smaller country than you. So the opportunities to spot those women over here are few and far between too.
Well, we should keep looking and we should hold them up and embrace their level of charisma and energy and intelligence and make it okay for them to be authentic women in leadership positions.
I agree. And sometimes they do fly under the radar, some of these very intelligent women. They don't want to be in the public eye. either, and they're very busy doing what they're doing, and they don't necessarily, come forward. But anyway, so in your amazing career and everything that you've done and all of the awards that you've received and all of the boards that you sit on at the moment, Heather, where do you see yourself in 5 years from now?
I really hope I continue to be a CEO of a mid-sized growth company, really in the thick of helping a company grow and scale across time. I really enjoy that size and the energy of a company that's found its product market fit, but is building process and foundations and finding a way to be efficient going forward and create opportunities for individuals. So I really have enjoyed the CEO spot, having an opportunity to both do what I came up through my career doing, sales and marketing and account services, so really looking at the client facing side, but then to also get a chance to impact the culture of a business and be part of both the strategy and the well-being of the people who work there. I've just really loved that opportunity. I find it humbling and scary at times to know that I'm being watched by these daughters for doing that, but want to continue to pave that path.
Well, that's highly credible. And 5 daughters, that's quite an achievement. And you have a big role. Yeah, they've got big shoes to fill by the sound of it, in their lives to move forward. So, just one last question: what are you doing to ensure that this is an area of strength for you, which clearly it is already, without question, but also those that you are mentoring and the women who are following you in all of these various different positions and organisations that you're involved with? One of them being chief, which is similar. We have a similar one out here in Australia called Chief Executive Women.
Well, I think there's two sides to that. What am I doing in order to keep practicing it? And that's what I would say is the word practice, just constant striving to be better. I like to think of myself as a sponge. I think that, practice makes better. I think that every day you have to strive for that 1% effort to make moves. So I have zero complacency that I have learned it all or know it all or am even doing all that good of a job. Just keep trying and keep learning. And then for helping others, I think radical candor, really speaking into this issue, having an opportunity like this to talk about it. But when I have mentees or I have individuals and women that I'm mentoring or managing, or dress codes I'm building for work or expectations and standards I'm setting, I think that being honest about expectations, whether that be how they show up to work, from the way they dress and present themselves to the way they take opportunity. I often talk to women who I have the privilege to mentor about no one cares about your career as much as you do. So you have to let your managers around you know what you are interested in doing and the ambitions that you have. And you have to raise your hand for additional responsibilities and opportunities and look for those. If you're quietly in the back and don't get noticed, don't be surprised. Sit with your hand up in the front and you'll be amazed at what chances that will bring.
I love that phrase. No one cares as much about your career as you do. How many women do you think have not realized that?
Way too many. I think so many women, probably so many people in general, but I certainly, since we're talking about women here, I think certainly too many women wait to be recognized, wait for someone to tell them they're ready or that to ask them to apply for a job or a project or a special assignment instead of raising their hand and saying, that's something I want to do. Or letting their manager know my ambition is to be promoted within a year, or my next job that I'd like to do, or my next skill I would like to learn is this, because that moment empowers your manager, your leader, your mentor, your whoever it is to help make those opportunities possible. But if you don't speak up, sometimes you're waiting in a crowded, very, very loud room to be noticed.
Well, it gets back to the old saying that women don't like to self-promote. And, you know, you've come from a sales background and I have a sales background. It's one of the things we have to do, isn't it? We have to sell ourselves. We have to talk about ourselves and what we're good at and what we would like to do moving forward. So all really fabulous pieces of advice, Heather.
Absolutely. The big difference between confident and cocky. And if you can find the space of confident and sharing the things that you've done well, I think other people respect those.
So it's good to have an ego, but leave it at the front door, correct?
Absolutely.
Oh, look, well, thank you so much for your time. I know it's evening there in Washington, D.C., so I'll let you be and get back to your family and have a wonderful evening. And thank you so much for sharing all of your pearls of wisdom. If somebody wanted to reach out to you, Heather, what's the best way for them to be able to get in touch with you?
I am very active on LinkedIn. They are welcome to connect with me, to write me there. I try to get back to people as I can. But I enjoy meeting new people and being connected. And I'm certainly here to help anybody that I can. So feel free to connect with me there.
That's wonderful. Well, again, thank you so much for the conversation. It was a pleasure meeting you. It's amazing, isn't it, to think that you're all the way over there and I'm here and we're having this conversation. It's fabulous.
It is. And I just really appreciate the chance to meet you and get to talk about this, a subject close to my heart.
Wonderful. Thank you, Heather. Have a pleasant evening.